Hello and welcome to day 8 of the Night in the Woods retrospective, which personally is the most heart-wrenchingly difficult day of Night in the Woods because, what happens in the morning, it definitely is like one of the points where I'm just like, ugh, this is sad, and May, I need to smack you metaphorically. And yes, have to touch the Sharkle because, he is the angel of death. But, I would say this is definitely the day that's considered the nadir of the story. This is where everything goes bad. It has the most amount of conflict between May and her folks, which, I can totally see why May's mother is angry at May for being quiet and evasive and not getting a job or anything like that, and essentially throwing away all of the plans they meticulously put up for her, but at the same time can also see things from May's perspective. One, she's definitely not mentally stable and doesn't really want to discuss about what's going on because I don't think she knows how to articulate this. And also, I would say that all of the mentions of plans about how, they raised so much money and all that stuff for her, and, she'll be the first Borowski in college and all that stuff. It probably just put more stress on her than she was really able to handle. But, yeah. I could see it. This is the worst type of thing to say about what's kind of going on, so I really do hope that, at the end of the game, because May says she's willing to start talking about what happened, that's going to be what does happen. I'd like to think so. I'd like to think that May does get to, open up, and I don't think things are going to get quote-unquote better, but at least, things will be more open and communicative, which is something that I'd say this family desperately needs at the moment. But I can kind of tell that this is definitely an argument that was brewing for a long time. Sometimes you've got to pull off the bandages. But hey, at least, I guess things are more or less in the open. And we get to see more just how things are going on. So this is, I guess, definitely on Halloween proper, 2017. I always figured it was like the weekend thereof, because the whole idea of Harfest, which is this sort of family-friendly version of Halloween. Okay, so I grew up in the desert, which normally is, fine and all that kind of stuff, but come autumn, which of course Halloween's in the middle of, and since Halloween activities are typically done in the evening, which is, the twilight times, which is essentially in that time of year when snakes and other kind of nasties are the most prevalent. The community I lived in, we really didn't do the whole trick-or-treating thing just for general safety. I know that that's going to be strange to people, that people were concerned about other people's safeties all the way back in the far reaches of the late 80s and early 90s, but yeah, we didn't do stupid crap that could possibly kill us just to prove our quote-unquote manliness. If something was indeed possibly going to kill us, we avoided it. So instead of doing the door-to-door trick-or-treat thing, essentially what the school did was have this whole carnival set up in the school football field, and all of the big stadium lights were on and all that kind of stuff. So generally it was a more safe environment to do Halloween type stuff, and the whole theater that was right next to the football field was converted into a haunted house and by the local high school and all that kind of stuff. So it was actually kind of awesome. So I can totally see why May is big into the whole idea of Harfest. Earlier when May was looking at the city council talking about the hit record, which seems to be, I'm guessing, a Ferris wheel. My dad once saw someone put together one of those tilt-a-whirl things that, housed 40 people on its walls as it went spinning around, and he said, the bolt that holds that thing together is about the size of your thumb. I didn't want to get on that after that. I'm like, I could understand that. I mean, I don't think it would explode or anything like that, because you don't hear about that too often. Although because you don't hear it too often, maybe it happens so commonly it's never brought up. I think it's more of the former than the latter. Otherwise, I think carnies would be like the most regulated group out there. Which, spoiler, they probably should be, considering what they're doing is essentially running an amusement park on the go. That should definitely be regulated. But here we get the three weird teenagers, and May describes the shipwreck when she first arrived. I got this wrong when I first played it, and they just kind of shut you out. This starts a small little mini game which doesn't really do much of anything except for help you get more drawings in your journal. And of course, here's another question that does nothing. That's actually a running theme in this game, that no matter what you choose and no matter what you say, you have very little impact on the storyline. And the only reason why that's kind of interesting is that this game is kind of set up as like, one of those visual novel type games, just done through a platformer. The fact that May's responses have very little in the way of impacting the storyline, I guess kind of helps build up this sensation that, May has little to no actual control over her life. Which she does seem to be doing. Yes. Yeah, they do seem to be just a little bit weird. And Bruce is definitely a interesting character. Can totally understand why he's kind of so standoffish, but it kind of gives him that dark and mysterious sort of vibe. And as this game kind of points out, all of these, people like Bruce, even if they're just drifters, they are people. Yeah, again, really, really sad. You hate when May messes up her relationships, even if you don't have much control. You're really like, no, I want you to be the best cat person possible. But anyway, what I was about to say about Bruce is, he's a normal person. He's just kind of going through a string of bad luck. It ends with him saying that he's gonna try to be going to, live with his daughter and granddaughter, which I hope is him telling the truth and not just lying to get people off of his back. And yes, now the attic of the City of Commerce is full of rats because I've been feeding them. Yep, May's babies have indeed left the nest. And she has caused a plague of rats upon Possum Springs. Good for you, May. And yep, they're still complaining about the hit record. And I no longer have to do the mini game of grabbing the pretzels. Those delicious pretzels. So here's a character that it shows up once, and based off of his inability to speak, I'm thinking that he's tied up and gagged so that, he can't go free. But May seems to be taking it in stride and not even attempting to help him out. So I'm almost wondering if, he's, just trying to sit around and scare other people. And yeah, the Smelters fans who are, they are a tiny, insignificant group of people in this game, and yet they provide a whole lot of insight just as far as the previous generations, especially male population, their inability to really communicate about their thoughts and feelings, which has driven their sort of emotional maturity down incredibly, just by trying to repress everything. Which is sad, but I mean, it's the culture they grew up in. And yes, I can totally see May being all into the pagan stuff and trying to summon demons all throughout town, because that is indeed what she would do. So day 8, I think, is like the last, what I would consider quote-unquote short day, and yet it still even clocks in at 40 minutes, as you can see at the bottom of your YouTube screen. So yeah, each day is relatively long. And then here we've got Germ and the vagabonds of the local trains. You certainly see a whole lot of different kinds of people in this game, which is kind of cool, although I'd say you see not a single person above maybe mid-middle class. Except for, I'd say, some of the incidental pieces. I'd say CJ, is a lawyer, so it's probably upper middle class at most. CJ also seems to be relatively young, so probably not that well off, but at least can afford paying rent, which is nice. I'd say the Russian traveler is probably relatively well off compared to everyone else, just because he's able to do a trip like this without much issue. And other than that, I guess maybe the because even the Navy person is getting Navy pay, so he's probably barely middle class. So that's kind of weird about this game, especially when May talks to Lori M, and Lori M's like, "Oh, you're from the rich place," and May's just like, "We're not really rich." Yeah, we're in a place that's so destitute that middle class seems to be relatively well off. And now we've got more petty vandalism between, Greg and May. What's petty vandalism? I believe that's defined as any kind of vandalism that's underneath $500 worth of damages. And since, as Greg explains, each of these bulbs are like 67 cents, I think May only does like $10 worth of damage. And I think I only missed one bulb in this sequence, which is kind of nice. Never mind, that was 2. But I do pretty well, at least compared to some of my other things. I don't get beamed in the head, which is kind of nice. Yep, 67 cents. I'd have to count how well I'm doing. Oh, never mind. I didn't realize that the hash marks on the dumpster tells you how well you're doing. So I've missed 2, so that's 8 there. 9. 10. Yep. He's got 10 bulbs, that's $6.70 worth of damages. That's still petty. And Greg does indeed rule, okay? But yeah, I'd say a large amount of this game is certainly very, you know, built around socioeconomics. The feeling of being kind of trapped, and also the feeling that very little of what you can do can actually change anything. Kind of, again, you know, like I said, based off of the gameplay, but it also feeds into the setting, it feeds into the theme, it feeds into everything. So those people who like to talk about make sure your gameplay actually dictates your theme and setting, this game is really into that. One point I mentioned in a whole Twitter conversation with Alex Holka, one of the creators of the game, how it's fascinating how with B and Greg, they're kind of the opposites as far as B is very reactive. She'll just take whatever May recommends on doing, and she'll be along for the ride, and those events tend to go relatively well for her. But then you've got Greg, who almost always is the one who instigates things. He's like, no, we're going to do this, we're going to do that, and May is the one that's along for the ride in those instances. And how on the fourth event, either Greg going to the donut shop or B going to the college party, that's when the dynamic flips, because it's May who's suggesting that they go to the donut shop, or it's B kind of saying that she's going to the college party. You know, their basic natures are being flipped, and in both of those, everything ends up kind of exploding in their faces. Things don't go well for Greg in that one, and things really don't go well for B at the college party. I always keep on forgetting because very rarely do you actually walk to May's place, so I keep forgetting hers is the one with the copper star. But it's nice that it is marked. I'm not sure what exactly Witch Dagger is, but I always kind of want to say it's in this alternate universe that TV show Witchblade managed to get a huge following for some reason. But I think it's probably some sort of like combination between Charmed and Supernatural and that kind of thing. Just with a really weird, funny costume. Which I thought she just made on her own, except for because I played Greg's run first. But yeah, then it turns out, oh no, there's apparently official, you know, Witch Dagger clothing and belt buckles and crap like that. Yeah, you get to Harfest and you lose the ability to jump and to change your plane, which, you know, it's understandable. They're trying to restrict you to this screen, but it feels incredibly restrictive. Then you have, this mini game, which I dare call it a mini game because, you just spin the wheel once, and I think you get the same fortune no matter what. It might be a different card, but I think what she says is always the same, that, you know, you'll live, you'll die. Which, leaves May feeling that she was ripped off, and yeah, I think that's you know, how the game is sort of supposed to be built as. But yeah, that's, I think, new as of Weird Autumn, as is the other part of the tent, which is the water balloon thing. And it's really good that they've added all of these mini games because, yeah, the Harfest song goes on for quite a long time, but it used to be just, you just wandered in. Yeah, I'm not particularly great at this. I think you get up to like 19 hits, but yeah, I love it when you hit them multiple times and they start breaking character, just being like, darn it. Kind of funny is I know Colleen looks nothing like Greg, but every time I see her pop in, I immediately think it's Greg. I would not be surprised if she wasn't, like, related to Greg, like, cousin or something like that. Yeah, I don't think the pumpkin ever breaks character, because I think he's giving 0 Fs. Yeah, I'm freezing now. The pumpkin is freezing. And for some reason, I have a really tough time getting this one. Actually, wait a minute. A fox, a bear, a skeleton. Wait a minute. Oh, and a bird. I was about to say, is this group supposed to be, like, in some way a reflection of May and her party? Kind of is. Except, I guess, replace May with Germ or something like that. Which I guess would kind of make sense. A lot of people love putting Germ into the, main party. Which I can understand. Germ is definitely very cool. But, they always seem to forget about Lori, who is sort of this background character that does so much. I mean, she messes up the dudes, she's got all of these sort of like, young hopes and dreams and stuff like that. It kind of reminds, well, to me, I'd say she reminds May of this kind of sense of innocence back when the world could be great. So at this point, I go in and I pull the singular save file and make a copy of it so I can figure out all of the responses for the Harfest play. It really doesn't matter what your responses are. You don't really get any like achievement or any special dialogue or anything like that. It's just what the town responds with. So I went through and I made sure to give all of the worst responses ever. The ones that make the audience kind of, murmur and discontent. Largely because I imagine that would be funnier than getting all the right ones. But again, it does little. Although I think it adds extra, dialogue because you get B correcting you all the time rather than just, being quiet. So I guess, yeah, you do get extra dialogue for messing things up. Haha. But yeah, this is, I think, where you get the most amount of information about the history of Possum Springs. How you have, yeah, these two trappers who come across a spring that a dead tree is been burst out of, which is a good indication you should probably not drink the water if the plant life around it is dying. So the quote-unquote cursed spring is probably a, spring that's poisonous, and as we learn later, Possum Springs was the site of a massive a massive copper mine, and something that comes with copper mines is often arsenic. So arsenic probably bled into the water, which caused that spring to become poisonous and thus killed people who were drinking from it, because arsenic is bad for you. And Dan is uncomfortable. So yeah, I feel that the town, or on the map, it was initially just dropped or written down that there was a poisoned spring here to get people, keeping away from it. But it wasn't until they discovered copper in the area and they realized, oh, we need to get people here to mine this, that they changed it from poisoned spring to possum spring, which would also explain how, the story with the trappers, and they're really insistent on beavers. So you would think that this place would be called Beaver Spring, but it's not. It's Possum Spring. So that's why I'm kind of like, yeah, it was probably named one thing and they were trying to make it sound alike. And yes, poor Gregory has been pulled into this. Yeah, I always figured, when I first played this, I figured it would be like Final Fantasy VI, where you could look over your lines, but yeah, no. Despite B pleading for May not to wing it, she really does. And here, yeah, I'm trying to make sure that I'm getting the worst thing. Okay, in this segment, the responses are randomized. Usually in this game, like option 1, option 2, option 3 are always the same no matter what. But in this segment, it seems like sometimes they switch around what's the quote-unquote good answer and what's the quote-unquote bad answer. So I had to play through this a few times to make sure I was giving the correct response. But yeah, I think I've managed to get it. So if you want to play this game and you want to make sure you get all the good responses, just do the exact opposite of what I'm doing here. Yeah, I think that one is one response that you can't get a good or bad one, because I think B is just okay, and the janitor responds positively each time. So I think that's the one case where you're just yeah, whatever. And yeah, I think both of those, whenever you're dealing with the janitor, you can't get it wrong. But I figured having, you know, May responding, very out of character like this, would be the best way to get it quote unquote wrong. I have a feeling that the janitor can't face right. I think he always moves in the leftward positioning. Yeah, the obviously not Danny, but the orange cat I always thought was River, the person who B was having problems with, but apparently no, that's a different person, which is good because he hangs around a lot. I think River's just a guy who's like almost always on, doing house calls elsewhere, which I guess is good for B. But yes. Yeah. May, you can be a bit of a fifth wheel. Both of those things can indeed be true. But yeah, poor May, completely abandoned. She looks out and skulks. Or sulks. I'm guessing she can't see this at this angle, but yeah, as soon as he passes by the statue, she can see it. And yeah, I think this moment does dictate a lot about May's characterization. She sees someone being abducted, and she doesn't go around looking for an authority figure. She immediately goes off on her own. One, probably because she has very little faith in the police, but also because, yeah, if she sees wrongdoing, she's going to, take care of it. Or at least try. She wants to do good, so that's good. And the moment where Molly seems to show up and just tell her to leave, which, yeah, definitely is evidence towards Molly being part of the cult, but I don't think she is personally. I think she's just someone who isn't really sure what the hell is going on. And yes, we get to one of the shorter dreams, which is kind of nice. It's just, a nice short thing, and I don't have to go around looking for a bunch of musicians. Yay. But this should be the end of the 8th day. And when we come back, essentially the second week of Night in the Woods will start. That is indeed your doom. Have a good one.